Hello, everyone. This is a bit of business. My name is John FitzGerald, and on behalf of learmedia.tv and the British and Irish Trading Alliance, welcome to the show. Our interesting topic today for our broadcast is work matters. And doesn't it just, especially post-Brexit and especially in the construction sector across the UK and Ireland. With Brexit now in full swing, the specific implications for the labour market across our countries are becoming clearer, and it's mixed news. To discuss this today, our special guests are Kerry Swift, Caroline Oberman, and Phil Ridgwell, all experts in the field of recruitment across multiple disciplines within the construction sector and beyond. Kerry Swift is the Managing Director at Beam Recruit. She has almost 20 years of experience in specialist recruitment within the accountancy and financial sectors and has gained broad commercial awareness through dealing with SMEs, blue chip multinationals, and everything in between. Beam recruits at all levels from entry to director level, and they span a variety of sectors, including private practice, commerce, industry, charity, and not-for-profit. Caroline Oberman is a regional director for the Northwest of England at Linear Recruitment. She joined them back in 2014 to establish a new region for the company in the white-collar and blue-collar construction sectors. With 15 years of construction recruitment experience to call on, she is well placed to comment on the post-Brexit labour market, especially across the north of England. Phil Ridgwell is the founder of Core Group, one of the leading recruitment providers in the UK. He partners with major house builders, developers, RC frame and groundwork contractors across the UK and Ireland. Core Group's candidate pool stretches throughout the UK and Irish markets, so he is well up to date on the latest industry and sector news, as well as the latest trends in technology. And that's it, folks. Please do remember to visit the BITA website, BITA.ie, for updates on all things BITA related, including the Be Plastic Aware initiative that aims to reduce the amount of plastic within the construction sector and in our daily lives. Kerry, Caroline, and Phil, coming up next. Please do stay tuned. And we are now live with Kerry, Caroline, and Phil. Good morning to you all and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Morning.
So let's just jump straight in, folks. And as we start to come out of this global pandemic and post-Brexit, it sounds like a bit of a perfect storm, quite frankly. I'd love to understand what changes you're all seeing in the labour market so far and ask you whether it's been good or not so good for business. So, Kerry, perhaps we can start with you, please, on this one.
Obviously, I cover support function roles, so I most probably am not seeing the impact as much as the others for kind of more construction-based positions. But definitely for me, for more support-based roles, I've not seen that much of an impact really, personally, on the type of roles that I cover. So roles, purchasing roles, accountancy roles, all those support-based roles. I've not really seen that much of an impact really on my side of things.
And
if anything, I'm seeing a positive turn on the support-based roles in businesses, recruiting. I'm most definitely seeing a shift on the permanent side. So where last year it was more interim and temporary based, I've definitely seen a shift this quarter on businesses growing and recruiting on the permanent side of things, especially more so on the purchasing side, because as we most probably know, materials and things coming into the UK post-Brexit has been tricky, and companies stockpiling. So I definitely say on the purchasing side, I've seen a little bit of an increase to get really good people, strong people in.
So this is positive news, Kerry, which is terrific to hear. Phil, what about yourself? What are you seeing?
We see it change at the back end of last year, but obviously once the pandemic hit, for once construction didn't really feel the wallop that some other sectors did. Q2 was a little bit interesting, to say the least. But what we see a lot of the EU labour, obviously with Brexit coming in place, they took their support from the government and went home, and they haven't returned in their numbers that they were before. So it has caused, coming into the busy time of year, especially for construction and civils, as it is now with the weather getting better, it's we are seeing a real labour shortage and a real opportunity for people coming into the UK. It's with infrastructure and the investment the government have made over the past sort of 12, 24 months. You've got HS2, fibre to the homes, fibre to the businesses, and the various motorway upgrades and driverless cities that they're looking to do. Infrastructure, which fundamentally is construction and civils, will boom. So I see a real problem over the coming years and months to man these projects. I mean, we have started looking further afield in training and bringing our own labour across from places like Kosovo, Albania, and setting up training centres in these locations to try and plug some of these gaps and obviously take advantage of the market and the shortage that there is going to be over the coming years.
Well, let's come back to that shortfall in a minute, Phil, because I want to just dig into it in a little bit more detail. But Caroline, just before we do that, from your perspective now, you're very much focused on the northwest of England. What are you seeing and have seen over the last 5 or 6 months?
I would agree with Phil. We've had a very similar experience. A lot of the guys went back during last year and just didn't return even before Brexit was due to happen, because they had preconceived ideas of how Brexit will affect them and thought it'd be better off if they just stayed back home. And you have to remember that we had a shortage in construction even before Brexit started. So, we already had a shortage of skilled and unskilled people to fill the roles. And, I would agree with Kerry, we're very busy. The clients are all hiring. The clients are hiring on a permanent basis as well as a temporary basis. But there is such a shortage of candidates from a cumulative effect of the pandemic, Brexit, and people not coming into the industry as a general whole anyway, because it hasn't been an industry that's been highlighted as a career path for people. So all of those things going together means that there's always been a shortage, and it's only going to get worse.
We've seen as well from Europe as a whole. It's an emerging market. The Nordics at the moment are absolutely booming around data centers, again, infrastructure. And obviously Germany as well. It's a shorter drive from Eastern Europe to Germany than it is to I think it's 2 hours. To Germany, and obviously Nordics as well. It's sucking up what the labour it was there, so that they can go home every day and still go and earn decent money within the European Union.
The rates aren't that much different now. The money, the attraction of the UK and the money isn't there anymore.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
So, Phil, let's just talk about those shortages a little bit, because I was reading something in the newspaper that London has been hit most significantly. And I think there was a decline of about 30% from about 80,000 foreign workers to about 50,000 foreign workers now in London. So what is the impact then for contractors? How are contractors responding to this? And what impacts are they seeing every single day on the ground because of this?
The cost of delivering their job is increased. You're having to pay a higher rate to get get someone to the job, and it's become also almost mercenary, really, in and around London. The only good grace that we've got with London is that the fit out market is completely dead in London. Obviously, no one's in the offices, no one's looking to build new offices, so the demand for fit out type resource has diminished somewhat, and I don't really see that returning in any great numbers over the next 12 months. Like I said, I think the landscape and the dynamic of office-based work has changed forever. We've gone from very, very office-based to a hybrid model of splitting working from home and working in the office. And it's also come to my attention this week that the government have mobilised a task force to look at potentially moving schools to a hybrid model of three days in school and 2 days at home learning, which
all the parents are now going to be really unhappy about.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite lucky for me. My kids are older now, so I'm 14 and 22. So
I don't really know how that'll work with parents that have to go to work. I don't see how that's going to work.
Yeah, I think it does throw up some challenges. A few of my friends are in education recruitment and educate in ed tech as well, and their market will be completely obliterated because the need for teachers will not be there. If you're not in school 2 days, and all you'll be using is facilitators to take the lessons, and it just I
actually think it's a dreadful idea.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Kerry,
because the parents aren't school teachers, and not everyone's got a suitable home to go and be taught in back at home. I think it's a dreadful idea.
I think I couldn't agree more. I think it's a disaster, in my opinion. I think kids, you're going to see a generation of kids that may struggle with educational levels, learning ability, social interaction, anxiety, depression. That snowflake generation is going to really come through over the next 10 years due to these type of actions and what has gone on over the last 12 months.
And Kerry, are you seeing this now, this move to a hybrid working environment in the support functions? Because it sounds like it would impact that significantly.
100%. And I don't know whether you remember a number of years ago, I think the Labour government were talking about a 4-day working week, and everybody raised their hands up and we can never do that. And I'm seeing a lot more traditional organisations who previously would say we're never working from home, we're never virtually going to recruit, have made a U-turn. So one particular business that I work with, a very traditional legal firm that employ people all over the world, are going to a 3-day home working and 2-day in the office long term with their support functions. So it's definitely, I've seen a huge shift. And what I would say, I think candidates in the market are now actually saying, I don't know whether I want to go back working in the office. And I think if businesses don't adopt a hybrid approach, they're not going to attract top talent. So I think it's going to be another benefit now that we're going to start seeing is, do we have part working from home? And I think there's going to be, well, I think there is a shift already.
Looking at the positives of what has happened around that, and that is one of the positives for me. I think I didn't even know, like we use Microsoft 365 in our business, and it has a Teams function. Prior to March last year, I didn't even know what Teams was, to be honest. And the way we've started to communicate within the business, being separated has brought us closer together as a business. Communication is far better than it's ever been, and it's given us a bit of a togetherness, really, in a strange sort of way. Like I said, we catch up constantly on video. I think trying not to do death by Teams is a fine balance. You can sometimes spend your day on it all day long, which gets a bit boring. But I think there has been some real positives around getting people to communicate and talking much more, and around mental health as well. So I think it's been, there has been a lot of positives that have come out the back of what has been a bit of a crap 12 months.
And Caroline, do you think this move to a hybrid way of working is being driven, as Kerry mentioned, perhaps by candidates, or are companies, the proactive companies, deciding, look, we have to offer this if we're going to attract the right sorts of candidates?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think, sort of prior to the pandemic, there was maybe a bit of an idea that if people were working from home, they wouldn't be more productive, or, they wouldn't get the hours. And what it's proven is that, people can do their job from their home, as well as they can in the office. I mean, obviously not with the traditional construction roles. If you're a site manager, you're not sitting at home managing your site, are you? So, this is only going to be for the more sort of support type functions. But yeah, I would say probably 90% of companies that I deal with will continue to offer flexible working arrangements for people that can work from home. Definitely, it saves on travel costs, travel time. If people haven't got a commute, that's time they can be spending in their work. It's cost for the company.
I think it really lends itself to certain sectors as well. Like we have a marketing business, so that they give their office back. They had an office up in the city that they've, at the start of the pandemic, they give notice 3 months, and they have no office. They're completely what they call a digital nomad, I think the word is. And so it really lends itself. But I think for sales, you do need that aspect.
I think you need a bit of everything, don't you? You do need a bit of, and also, with the offices as well, because I ummed about sort of changing my office space, but we just don't know how long social distancing is going to go on for. So, rather than downsize, we're probably just going to keep the size that we've got, because if you're getting people in the office, you don't want people uncomfortable sitting too close to the colleague next to them.
How many are you seeing back in the office, Caroline? Have you got many back yet, or are you still WFH?
No, my team are back. We're back in the office. We were back 2 weeks ago when the sort of government advice changed from stay home to stay local. But we have continued to offer a flexible working arrangement so that the office is never full. There's never everybody in at the same time. And we have plenty of space as well for people. But to be honest, we've even been out and seen clients face to face in the last couple of weeks. People have, sites and offices have been set up in a way that you can go and visit them and feel completely safe. I mean, as you know yourself, Phil, the construction sites were all made COVID safe. Probably last May. They took a couple of weeks off after the end of March, reviewed the government advice, and I'd say from May last year, most of the sites have been pretty safe to visit. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing clients face to face again. And whilst I do get the benefits of Teams and Zooms, and it's been great, I don't think that can replace for me actually seeing someone properly.
No, definitely not. No, we've been out and amongst it, which it's been welcomed as well. The clients have actually welcomed seeing people and discussing some positive actions around their projects and looking towards the future to see, and how we can benefit and work with them in delivering the projects, because it is quite challenging at the moment.
It's that like sort of balance as well, because we would like our staff to go out and see people as well and visit them, but obviously if people feel uncomfortable doing that, we're not saying to anybody you have to go and see people. It's whatever people feel comfortable with, really.
So let's come back to the absence of candidates for certain roles. So there's, I guess, two ways you can look at this. One, there's opportunities for homegrown talent that perhaps graduates that would not have thought about going into the construction sector or one of the support functions, or taking that type of career route. So there are opportunities for local people to get into the sector. But then also, and maybe I'll come to you on this, Phil, if you're sitting in Ireland, for example, or in Spain or France or Italy, and you're looking at the UK, there are opportunities because there is now a lack of skills. So how do you guys see it? Do you see the local labor force starting to strengthen and more people from local, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland coming into the sectors? Or do you see it starting to open up again once people understand that it's not as difficult as they might think to come and work in the UK? Phil, let's start with you on that one.
I think that it's a bit of a difficult one, really, because the construction sector is not seen as attractive, really. Young people, when I was a young man coming out of school, I went and did a traditional apprenticeship, 5 years, design engineer, working on site management, and you're just not seeing that at the moment. And with like this fourth industrial revolution we've got coming around AI and technology the way it is, people want to go to these more attractive Vogue type roles and techie tapping away, programming, and yeah. So we're not seeing the entry level, and it is being pushed. I mean, the apprenticeships that are being offered by some of the big tier ones are fantastic. You know, they are real game changing opportunities to progress quickly through the tier ones. But it's just no one's coming in any great numbers, and I think it will have an impact. You know, as that industry gets older, you're going to find that gap increase further. You know, nobody wants to become a ground worker these days. It's just not seen as attractive, getting on the shovel and, you know, digging away in the freezing cold, and yeah, people, you know, or driving a digger. So, you know, that used to be some kid's dream, you know, driving a JCB. But yeah, it's just not seen as attractive these days, which I think is that needs some work.
Caroline, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in terms of maybe some of the more white collar roles, absolutely, you know, people maybe now see, you know, quantity surveying or planning or architecture. Yes, homegrown people, you know, that is something that will happen. My biggest concern is actually probably the more unskilled people. We had, you know, a lot of European workers that would do general labouring, or like Phil says, you know, ground working. They're going to dig with spades in the ground, or, you know, hand digging and things like that. Local people are not attracted to doing that. You know, that isn't something that people say, yeah, that's what I want to do is my vocation. And it isn't, you're right, Phil, it's not marketed well to people. You know, construction is something in school, if you're not very academic, here's another option for you. You know, people don't realise the career that you could have in construction, and the money that it can earn you. And obviously, you know, women in construction, it's not a big marketable thing to women. I had a little look at even our temporary workforce that we have in our agency, and 2% of our workforce is female. So there's, you know, huge market there that people need to tap into. But again, it's just not marketed to people in that way.
I definitely think they're missing the boat there with the women, to be honest. I think if they really...
You need a few women project managers, don't you? That's what you need.
100%. You know, I think it would, you know, that you just don't see it. I mean, I've probably seen a handful of women JCB drivers, you know, crane drivers, and they, you know, they do as good a job as anybody. So I think if we focused a little bit around that and maybe pushed that agenda a bit more and made it more attractive and more welcoming and not so intimidating, maybe for a female, it would be.
And I don't think site is intimidating anymore. I don't think it is. It's not 1980. They're not wolf whistling them from the scaffold. It isn't that environment anymore.
I was recruited for a health and safety role within construction, and out of 187 applicants, 4 of them were women. Out of 187 applicants.
And I would say, Kerry, health and safety is probably a more female-dominated industry. You know, if we were recruiting health and safety, I would expect more women to apply than if I was recruiting for a site manager or a project manager or a contracts manager.
I've not found that, though, over the recent few roles I've recruited within health and safety. It's definitely been male orientated.
No, I agree. It would be male dominated.
Oh, sorry.
The fact that you got 4. If we were recruiting a role like a PM or a contracts manager, we'd maybe get none. One maximum.
Yeah.
Kerry, what do you think the answer to this is?
It's education, isn't it? It's education going back into schools, isn't it? It's going as early as that, isn't it? It's going into schools, and it's definitely tapping in on those children who don't want to go down the academic route, maybe, and, you know, giving real life examples. And it's about working with the communities. But I suppose when you guys on the ground are looking at this labour crisis, that isn't the answer straight away, is it? That's the long-term answer. That's not going to get the immediate. And I think he's called Kevin Foster. I think he's like the Immigration and Borders Minister, was talking about this engaging with training and apprenticeships. We've now got Kickstart, and I think all that's amazing, but it doesn't, I suppose, solve the here and now problem, does it?
So picking up on that, though, Kerry, let's turn now to the shortage occupation list. So apparently the government is hinting that some of the new immigration rules and regulations can be relaxed a little bit because of this situation, especially for construction workers. one Lord's minister said that the SOL should make it easier for foreign workers to secure a UK visa, and that could include folks in construction. What are you hearing about this, and how likely is it? How quickly will the government actually act to try and address this?
I don't know about you guys, but I'm really confused on the highly skilled workers system and point system. I don't know whether you guys understand it. I think it's a bit confusing. I don't think that helps the scoring system. And then obviously you've got to be Home Office licensed sponsor, which costs, I think, does it cost £5,000 per person? So I don't know whether you guys are finding it, but I think that's quite confusing.
As with anything the government ever release, IR35 changes in immigration, they give you a bit part story, they feed you a load of grey, and you have to try and pick the bones out of it best you can. There's never a definitive answer of exactly what you've got to do. You have to employ people, team, and it just all adds to the cost of delivery, And I just think if the government were a little bit more definite and on the steer of what they actually wanted and went down a path and stayed on that path, navigating these difficult waters might be that much easier, instead of you're battling the issue of the labour shortage and you're battling the rules of the government and trying your best to do a job in the middle, and then when it ultimately does go wrong or something, like, you get hammered anyway. So it does make it a little bit challenging to navigate these choppy waters. Especially if you're, for smaller businesses as well that are trying to operate, that haven't necessarily got a compliance team or HR or learning development to spend time on finding out what the exact rules and regulations are and navigating them, then it's a real minefield and a real worry, I would have said.
And Phil, you talked about setting up some means to get folks from Albania and Kosovo over to the UK. What are you doing to facilitate that? Has it been challenging? Is it working?
It is at the moment, because I can't get out there without having to isolate on the way back. So at the moment, it's become nigh on impossible. So we're trying to sort of mobilise it with our people in country, which is slow, to be honest. The countries are great and they're emerging, and it's great to facilitate this type of activity, but you need to be in country to get it mobilised, and that's proven quite challenging at the moment. So.
Phil, will you sponsor them, or will your client sponsor them? How will it work?
We will use a third party to sponsor them for a payroll bureau, and use a payroll company to bring them over.
So it's effective. Is that an employer of record model, Phil, where all of the administrative duties is taken care of by that third party, and then it's pretty straightforward for the worker to come over, paperwork is sorted out, off they go when they land?
Yes.
Caroline, what are you seeing in terms of, have you heard anything about the shortage occupation list? Do you agree with what Kerry and Phil are saying there?
Yeah, I think that the problem is it's too vague, and it's just adding extra cost. And when the costs are already going up to man these projects, if people have, what do clients want? They want something to be as cost effective as possible and as easy as possible, and all it's doing is making it more complicated and more expensive to hire people. So I don't think that's going to be their go-to number one way to get people onto their project.
No, definitely not.
And Phil, if you're sitting in somewhere like Ireland, for example, which is relative to the UK, a smaller construction market, although it can be just as buoyant, and you have foreign workers who are now looking at Germany, France, Italy, Spain as effectively competitors to the UK, because it's easier for them to just go there and work, and construction is starting to open up in lots of different countries. So what's the message for our the closest neighbor, which is Ireland, and folks looking at the UK? Where are the opportunities? How easy is it going to be for them to come over and work? What are you seeing?
I think work outside of London would be more attractive for people coming coming across the border, especially from Ireland. I just think the cost of living in London is ludicrous, and rents, and then if you do live outside and you've got to commute in, you've got the cost of commuting. There's plenty of work going on in and around the home counties and outside of, we do a lot up in Manchester and Scotland, around some of the industrial waste sites and Thames Water. So that there's plenty going on in other parts of the UK where cost of living is not extortionate like London. And I think that the bright lights of London are slightly dimmed due to the fact that it's just not what it was. You walk around London at the moment. I was up there 2 Saturdays ago, and I was in Camden Market at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, and it was a ghost town. Camden Lock on a Saturday afternoon is usually a hustle bustle, and it's all open there, obviously outside, and food stalls and food market, but it was sparse to say the least, and a little worrying, to be honest. It was quite sad to see that. So I don't think London's got the draw that it had once in yesteryear, but certainly outside, home counties in the north, there's plenty. Manchester is absolutely booming with construction. You've only got to look at the skyline in and around the city, and it is there's buildings flying up all over the place. I see Amazon are building a new hotel. It really is boom time outside of the cities.
So that segues nicely into your part of the world, Caroline. Where are the opportunities in the northwest of England? If you're looking outside of the UK and you're looking at the northwest, what are you seeing?
It's interesting, actually, because I think previously people who were relocating to the UK would have thought London, especially Europeans, and maybe it's because of the travel links. If you're going to get a flight into the UK, there's 3-4 airports in London, and people think London. But if you're coming from Ireland, then obviously you're going to land you could land in Liverpool, Wales, or perhaps Cumbria. And then you're easily commutable to other areas. We are very busy in the northeast of England. There are some really large, multi-million pound interesting technical projects in the northeast of England for people to get involved in. Not just Manchester as well, Liverpool as well is booming. It's got the waterway, Wirral Waters even is a huge project, lots of years of work going on there. So there is countless opportunities throughout the north of England, not even just in the big cities. If you go outside to places like Preston, Chester, there is work going on there. And other than the big construction projects, you've got all the housing that's being built as well in all the rural areas. If you go into Cheshire or Lancashire, lots of work going on there with the house builders as well. So yeah, lots of opportunities for people.
So Kerry, let's turn to you now for a second. What would be your single suggestion to the government to help resolve this and ensure that there is sufficient skills and labor on the ground for some of these big construction projects or support sectors?
I think there needs to be more flexibility for the unskilled worker side of things. I definitely think they definitely need to have more flexibility with that, not make it as complicated as well, and not put the barriers in the way to get the skilled workforce over here as well. Most definitely, I think it needs to be a bit more transparent, a bit easier, and the barriers not put up in the way, and the emphasis is on the organisations to foot the bill. So yeah, I think it just needs to make it a bit easier.
Phil, what would your single suggestion to the government be?
Well, I think they dropped the ball massively by introducing the changes to IR35 in the middle of a pandemic. That's not helped. So you've got a lot of people that use their own personal limited companies to, especially from a white collar perspective, and the white collar perspective are delivering these projects, they're pricing these projects, they're running the projects, and now they've got the added headache of trying to force them down a route of PAYE, which it probably represents, I don't know, maybe a 20-25% pay cut for them in their actual back pockets, which again, coming off the back of a pandemic where everybody's opportunity to earn has been limited, to say the least, is really causing an unnecessary upheaval. I expect Caroline has probably seen it
Phil, I could talk for about 3 hours about IR35.
And do you know what? I prepared for IR35 24 months ago, and then they moved. I was absolutely ready to go for it, and then they shifted the goalpost, kicked it down the road a bit, and I was like, oh, fuck it. And then, fast forward to pandemic time. Yeah, let's bring it in, cause another load of problems. And, it's been challenging. I think, again, the government need to be clear on the message that they're delivering, and so businesses like ours can execute that message and not live in constant fear that you're doing things right. Are you delivering the right message to the clients and the candidates? That's the problem for me, because it can be so conflicting. We'll deliver a message, we think we're absolutely nailed on with what we're doing, and then they'll go down the road to ABC agency and say, well, they're doing something completely different. Well, you can't blame them for that, because they're looking at the set of rules maybe and taking it in a different light and execute it to the best of their knowledge. So they need to be clearer and more direct in their what they want us to do as business owners.
Okay, so Kerry, make it a bit easier, a bit more transparent. Phil, IR35 is not helping in that situation. Caroline, what would your suggestion to the government be?
I wish Phil never mentioned IR35, because I could have a massive rant now about IR35. But yeah, I think the main thing is clarity. There is no clarity on anything. So what you get then is lots of different people having different interpretations of things. So all of your clients go out to their own legal support system to get their advice about what they should be doing. And all these legal support systems give them all different advice. And because there is no clarity, there is just nothing to say how things are going to do. And I think with IR35, what we found, Phil, I don't know if you found the same, is one company's gone, right, well, I've been given this advice that I'm going to ban all limited company contractors. Right, well, if that's what you're doing, I'm going to do that. Instead of going, right, well, we've got this great status determination tool you could use and you could do it properly. Well, no, because Joe Bloggs down the road is doing that. And then, well, if they're classed as an employee, we can't pay them CIS either. So we'll ban that as well. Well, if you're doing that, I'll do that as well. And it's just, there's no clarity. You can't refer back to the government. You can't refer back to any, official documentation that says this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do. And it's just created a lot of panic for people.
What we're seeing as well, obviously tier ones are coming out and blanket banning the PSCs. But when they're saying, right, can you quote for two lots of rates, CIS, PAYE, they're seeing the rates. And what they're weighing up is business continuity against delivering a project, against risk of an IR35 investigation. And
the funniest thing for me is that the tier one contract will say you have to blanket ban PSCs, but then you can provide a joinery subcontractor on their site with a worker via the subcontractor, doing the same job on the same site.
But they won't pay any more money. The tier ones won't let you increase the price of the job because the government have changed the goalposts.
To be fair, a couple of our clients have actually increased the rates. We have had a few people understand the fact that if people are moving into PAYE, they are not by 25% or anything, but by an increase to sort of soften the blow a little bit, which was good, because I fully expected that people would be telling us to take it out of our margin, which we don't have enough. We don't have enough in the margin to take. So I do think we have had some clients that have been sensible, but to give a short answer to your question, John, I just think there needs to be a lot more clarity.
Okay, well, look, folks, we can probably talk about this for a couple of hours, as you say, Caroline. But let me just finish with one very simple question, and let's see where we get to with it. Brexit, glass half empty or glass half full, and why? What do you think, Kerry?
Oh, that is a hard one, and you've put me first. It depends who you're speaking to, doesn't it? Oh, that's a difficult one. I can't even answer that question.
Can you see
Kerry,
light at the end of the tunnel as the dust settles, Kerry, on Brexit?
You know what? I'd most probably say glass half empty, if I'm going to be honest. I think the impact definitely around, I suppose, the labour force, for you guys, more so kind of on the ground, and the restrictions of talent coming into the UK. However, you could flip that and say, well, we need to look at people from Ireland, Wales, Scotland, the whole, and all of us, and maybe grow our talent, what we've got here, and start at the bottom and grow up. So it's most probably both.
Phil, what do you think?
For me, I think long term is really, really positive. The country is getting back its identity. I think we'll see a lot more from an engineering perspective onshored into the UK. I think manufacturing will again come back to the UK. You're going to see a lot of foreign investment into the country due to the tax breaks, etc., that the government are offering. I think it is a positive step. I just don't think they've delivered it in the right way. If I'll be completely honest, they haven't. It goes back to the being clear and concise. They haven't been clear on what we need to do as business owners. So you're caught in a bit of no man's land, really, and trying to navigate it best you can. But in summary, I see it as a very much a positive step for the country, and I think the country will get back its identity, and we'll become I don't think we've ever stopped being a bit of a powerhouse, but it will increase our capacities to deliver manufacturing engineering in the UK, and ultimately create other jobs in other sectors, and hopefully over the next 10 or 15 years work out of that skill shortage that we have an issue with in the UK.
Caroline, final thought from you.
So I was a massive Remainer with the whole Brexit thing, but we find ourselves where we are, and we have to make the best of it. So I am definitely a glass half full person, and if there's challenges, then all that means is there are opportunities. So in anything like this, you have to look for the opportunities and find them. Yes, for a little while, there's probably going to be a little bit of panic. There is going to be issues, but I think long term, we will get through it, and we'll find a way to make it work.
Very good. Okay, well, let's leave it there. And all that remains for me to say is, Kerry, Caroline, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. This has been A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald. All the best for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.